Welcome into the Volatile Podcast. I'm here with Jeff Wright and Nick Duncan and Joe Davis, and we're here to give you a weekly reminder that being a Vols fan is a terminal diagnosis that we all share. Guys, it's been a busy week and a half since we last recorded. Tennessee fell to the Fighting Illini 28-30 in the Music City Bowl. Tennessee basketball fell to Arkansas 75-86 on the road. We did catch a win last night at the time of this recording. It's Wednesday. So last night against Texas, we handled them pretty good, 85-71 final score there. We got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. Transfer portal, mostly negative, I would say, is probably what everyone's feeling. I don't want to speak on your behalf, but not been the best week and a half as a Tennessee fan. But let's go ahead and just start. Jeff, how are you feeling tonight, man? How's it going?
I'm personally feeling okay, I guess, but it's hard to be a Tennessee Vol right now, man. This is a pretty dark period.
Yeah. Joe, how you doing, bud?
Hopefully.
Yeah. Nick, how's it going for you, man?
It's going pretty good. I looked around this morning for some bleach to drink, and then I remembered that Conzo Martin used to be our basketball coach, and Butch Jones used to be our football coach, and I figured it's still terminal, but I guess the chemo's working a little bit. So,
hey, Mr. Sunshine. This is what Vol Sunshine looks like now. We remember when it was even worse.
yeah.
He definitely wouldn't have lost the Fighting Illini.
Okay, I'm gonna go find the bleach. I'll be back.
Golly.
Yeah.
You got to give a warning before you bring something out like that. I'm too fragile.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, it's bad. I think let's just go ahead and start with some general news. Obviously, the latest news here is transfer portal, right? So a lot of changes, a lot of things happening. I'll go ahead and start with just kind of some key names that Tennessee's lost, just because that's where all the action really is people leaving Tennessee. So Tennessee has lost since we last. Obviously, listener, you've heard us talk about us, losing Peyton Lewis, the transfer portal, losing some other, Amari Jefferson, some other players who, thank you, some other players who don't, maybe get as much playing time, but some more key names that we've lost since we've last recorded is Lance Hurd has entered the transfer portal, obviously starting left tackle. Ricky Gibson has entered the transfer portal, who, kind of is out of sight, out of mind this year, I think, for a lot of, kind of casual volunteer fans because, he wasn't on the field much. I think he only played in the Syracuse game, right, and he got hurt in that game. And then also the biggest, more recent one, I guess, is Jordan Ross. So Jordan Ross entered the transfer portal. Very unexpected, I think, for everyone. And then you got, Bennett Warren has also entered, but again, Bennett Warren didn't play a ton, though he was a rotational piece in the offensive line. So I think starting there, Jeff, I think you were the one that said off air that Tennessee has lost, 22? Is that the number you gave me? 22 scholarship players? Is that right?
It was 20 at the time, and we had gained 2. They've since gotten a commitment from an Auburn cornerback. And so we've lost 20 scholarship players, and we've gained 3 20. Back.
Yep. Okay, yeah, and we'll touch on the 3 here in just a second. But let's start with the losses first. So Nick, let me ask you first. Of those names, let's just keep it to Lance Hurd, Ricky Gibson, and Jordan Ross. Of those 3 guys, who do you think impacts us most negatively, and why?
Sure. Those are all 3 big losses. I think my answer is tainted a little bit by the fact that I know David Sanders can slide to left tackle, and Ori Williams is coming in. And I'm getting ahead of ourselves with the additions, but he'll play right tackle. But I just mentioned that because it affects my answer, because I think I might be tempted to say Lance Hurd. But I think I'm actually going to say Jordan Ross because I think you win and lose football games in the trenches. And I think our defensive line was very mid this year, lackluster compared to last year. And Jordan Ross was probably the brightest spot, him or Bryson Eason. And so, knowing that Jordan Ross is leaving and you already can't get to the quarterback, I think that's kind of a body blow.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. Does anybody have a different answer? Does anybody lean towards Ricky Gibson or Lance Hurd?
I would actually say Gibson for a couple reasons, and I'm not disagreeing. Like, but Gibson and Ross are the two that really hurt me.
Yeah,
I think Lance Hurd was kind of a money versus unwillingness to play the position they wanted him to thing, and he had a good year last year, but he's never been a world burner for me. So, like, I actually wonder the guy that you mentioned, Orly. I don't know that he unseats Jake Perry at right tackle. I think Perry
he may
might slide over. So we might be bringing in a guard.
He'll be
Ross,
the biggest guard in college football.
Do what now?
I said he'll be the biggest guard in college football. He's a gargantuan of a human.
Yeah. It is weird to think you bring somebody in that big, but what do you tell Jake Perry? Like, you've done this for us, and now you get a chance to start, and we bring somebody in over you. But anyway, I think part of the consolation of not having Jermod McCoy and Ricky Gibson last year was, okay, this is going to suck this year, but next year we'll bring Gibson back, and that position will be locked down cold. So, we would have two really good cornerbacks, and that he bails out after he also did this to us last year. I think Tennessee has done a better job of finding pass rushers than they have secondary help. And I think Gibson doing this twice makes me dislike him after I was already frustrated he set out. And apparently secondary is so important to our new defensive coordinator. So it doesn't matter which one you pick, but I would probably gut level go Gibson.
Yeah, so Nick, I'm glad you said, obviously talking about Ori Williams, bringing him in, and I did want to talk about it without thinking of those first, just because I do think the answer is Lance Hurd without knowing who you have. But now that you know who you have, so let's go ahead and touch on that. Tennessee has already gotten an official. So to be clear, I just looked into this right before we jump on. The only official guy that we have is Quay Moss, who's a safety from Kansas State. He is officially, I don't even know, maybe you guys know what the mechanism is that makes a commitment official within terms of the transfer portal. I don't know if he's signed some sort of commitment letter or something, letter of intent. I don't know what they call that for the transfer portal. But Quay Moss is the only officially official guy that we've gotten. Obviously, we've gotten the verbal commits from Ori Williams, offensive tackle from LSU, who Nick has mentioned, and then Jeff touched on it earlier, Kayan Lee from Auburn as a cornerback. So I think right there, you're replacing Lance Hurd in effect with Ori Williams. You're replacing Ricky Gibson in effect with this transfer from Auburn, and then you've got a safety that's coming in. So to that point, though, I think Nick, you are right. When we look at who we're bringing in as of right now, the answer has to be Jordan Ross because as of right now, you don't have an edge. You don't have somebody to rush the passer, and that sucks because, as you said, that's a super important part of what we need specifically on Tennessee's defense because of what our play style is like. You have to put pressure on the quarterback if we're going to be successful, and right now there's no one to do it. Joe, what you got?
Oh, I was just Mac was talking about the mechanism. My understanding is that it's similar to high school. It's just that when a guy's transferring, they kind of sign immediately. So I think Quay signed immediately. I think the other two guys have committed, and I think what that looks like is just verbal, and they haven't done the paperwork yet. So I think they just have to do like whatever paperwork is required to transfer schools. That is signing now. So I don't think Ori and do you say K? Is it Kayan Lee? Is that how you say his name?
It's like Kalen, but without an L. Kayan.
Got it. Kayan Lee. So I think that those two guys have verbally committed. They just haven't signed the paperwork yet. Which, that. So do you even feel good about that? I don't know. It's 2026 and it's college football, so it's chaos. So really doesn't mean anything till they sign. But technically, allegedly those guys are on their way. So
well, and even after they sign, if you're paying attention to that Desmond, what's it?
He's at
Washington. You can throw a fit and get out, and the school can release you. Yeah, because in this day and age, you can't hold anybody to anything, anyways. So if you know they don't want to be there, you might as well just let them go.
Well, I think an obvious thing to talk about here is this is our second LSU hand-me-down at offensive tackle here. And Jeff, you were kind of talking about earlier, about Lance Heard and how he maybe has been not as good as we hoped, I guess. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe just underwhelming. And I just wanted to let's just call it what it is. Lance Heard sucked last year. Lance Heard was a very bad tackle last year for us. Lance Heard, we all, listener, you don't know this, but we all went to the Arkansas game in Fayetteville last year, and Lance Heard played absolutely atrocious in that game. I remember just being so absolutely frustrated with him specifically. He just looked absolutely lost. He looked completely out of shape. He looked like he didn't even need to be on the field. And so this year he was definitely improved. But frankly, he would have had to improve. It couldn't have gotten worse because he was so bad last year. To me, this is just me being super negative, but I'm just like, if Lane Kiffin doesn't want this guy, then why do I want him? I don't know. I don't know anything about him. Obviously, on paper, he looks like a great player. I don't really have anything to say about him other than I really hope he's good, and I really hope he's willing to play right tackle, because what I've heard so far just from Austin Price and VolQuest, it sounds like he really wants to play left tackle. And I think that's the reason Lance Heard left. Again, they all kind of heard me throw that out as a possibility last podcast of maybe it's just we're picking who our left tackle is and the other guy's going to go. And Josh Heupel picked David Sanders. Well, now it's are you in the exact same spot? Is Ori Williams wanting to come in here and play left tackle? And if so, what does that mean? I don't know. It's just I'm a little worried just about. I hope he's not such a diva, because it seems like Lance Heard is kind of a little bit of a diva, and so I hope that Ori Williams is willing to slide over and play right tackle. Or, I think best case scenario, Jeff, I think honestly is Jake Perry just proves that he's better than him and he wins the job anyways, and he can move to guard, or he can do something else. And
third tackle in the rotation.
Yeah, and I think that would be great if Jake Perry just asserted himself and took the job anyways. But we'll see. I don't know. Anybody have anything to add to that about him being from LSU? Yeah, Jeff, go ahead.
Well, you remember Lance Heard was notable as a former 5-star?
Mm-hmm.
The big boy is a former 3-star. I do think we may have signed him for tackle depth if he's not going to play somewhere else on the interior of the line. But to try to be positive, I went with Gibson. I think I'm kind of against the rest of the pod on that. Remember, we're talking about a new defensive coordinator. And if you can buy that Heupel is not just signing who's willing to, right, that these early signings represent priority rather than just, oh my gosh, can somebody please sign with us? He signed 2 players out of the secondary, right? And so, you go back to Bryce Young, James Pierce. We thought Jordan Ross would be the next one, right? But they've been able to find, even at a Dollar General, an effective pass rusher. If it is priority, then maybe they're building around the secondary. I don't know. I'm just trying to find something to be hopeful about.
Yeah,
everybody?
No. I'm just kind of processing
hope.
what you're saying. I mean, I'm trying to look at it as optimistically as I can. I mean, obviously, I don't think we're an anomaly for feeling down about the past week and a half and how it's gone. So, I don't think we need to pump sunshine unnecessarily. But yeah, I mean, any silver linings we can find. I mean, it's very possible that, like you're saying, Jeff, that Heupel and Knowles, whoever is ultimately choosing these players, did so on because they're educated on them and they know they fit the system and they know they're exactly the type of player that we want here. And I hope that's true. It's just obviously we're conditioned to not trust ourselves at all because I mean the proof isn't there.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to do two things on that. One, I'm going to be a little bit more positive. One, I'm going to be a little bit more negative. So I do think that Tennessee's had a really, really rough start to the portal. Okay. But as of right now, some of their alleged top targets still have not signed. So there's the defensive lineman out of Penn State. He's not necessarily gone. We still, we've heard a lot of rumors about different quarterbacks, but I think the rumors tell us quarterback was a priority. Levitt's not off the board officially yet, right? And so this is one of those times where I want to say don't fall off a cliff until you see what they ended up doing with the money they were going to spend, right? So I'm trying to hold myself back to give them time to get done. It may prove that we're all very happy with the way they spent money. Yeah. The downside of that is, did y'all see that Danny White was going after a fan on Twitter? Did y'all see that?
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, a guy was complaining about the entertainment center or entertainment district being built. And Danny White said, "Oh, thank goodness you told me this. I was thinking building the entertainment district would win us a national championship." It was real condescending, just kind of beneath the dignity of the office, What that looks like to me is that the stress has got its way up to the AD. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like if he's popping off on Twitter, it probably means that he's not feeling super secure. So positive, negative. And then I would say this for context. Have y'all been paying attention to what happened to Alabama? I mean, Bama is getting gutted.
I mean, that they're getting looted. Yeah.
Yeah. They've lost. I read it one time. They've lost every recruit from the 21, 22, and 23 class. They were down to 8 scholarship linemen. They had 78 total players on their roster. They couldn't field a team based on what they have. And so right now, it looks to me, Arizona State has made a pretty good push in recent days, but it looks to me like Indiana and Texas Tech are the only ones who could say.
They're the only two fan bases that are happy.
Yeah, they're the only two who can say, man, portal season has gone great for us.
Yeah, what Ohio State fans are super black-pilled.
Yep. What you have there is the perceived best coach in the, in all of college football. And then the other one with Texas Tech is the most money in college football. Probably a sign of the times.
And Indiana's being funded by Mark Cuban. Their NIL budget's being funded by Mark Cuban. So they kind of have both.
Yeah. And so it's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the guy of the Mavericks.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
it's bad everywhere except Texas Tech and Indiana. And Tennessee may be able to at least come out ahead of somebody like Alabama, who's traditionally been a rival we care very much about. So let's just see. That's all you can do at this point is just hope there's something around the corner you don't know.
Well, we wouldn't be doing our due diligence on this podcast if we didn't talk about the elephant in the room, which is literal and figurative, and that is Ty Simpson. So we have to at least talk about it since you brought up Alabama. Where are you at? I mean, obviously he's not in the portal yet. It sounds like he really wants to go in the NFL draft. I was listening to a couple guys earlier talk about that. Basically, where it's at for them is they think that Ty Simpson may be waiting to see what happens with Dante Moore, Oregon's quarterback, because if Dante Moore goes into the NFL draft after Oregon season's done, whenever that wraps up, then he would be more inclined to stay in college. And if he stays in college, it would be looking to transfer. But if Dante Moore doesn't go to the NFL draft and he stays for another year, then Ty Simpson would be more inclined to go to the NFL draft. How much validity are you giving to Tennessee being a serious player with Ty Simpson?
I think they could be a serious player if he does stay, but I think that's like a 1% chance. I think this QB draft class is bad. I mean, it's Moore, Mendoza, and Ty, right? Like, who else is there in this draft class? And none of those guys are world beaters. So I think all those guys are, and you know how teams love to spend a bunch of money in the first round on a quarterback that's going to be terrible. So it'd just be shocking to me if 2 out of 3 of those guys, even if they all 3 go, won't be in the first round. So I haven't put a lot of thought into it because I don't think it's a real possibility. But I mean, it'd be amazing in my opinion. I mean, he grew up in West Tennessee, was a huge Tennessee fan, so I think it could be a legitimate possibility if he stays. But I don't think there's a high chance of that myself. The Browns are always good for a first round QB pick, which will be better than the first round, but they'll both still be bad. I mean, those are the 4 guys. I mean, unless I'm just forgetting someone, maybe Mac or Jeff can remember someone that we haven't stated. But
well, boys, I hate to announce doom, but they about 10 hours ago it was announced that Ty Simpson was going to pursue the NFL draft. He released a video that will depress you because it says Martin made, Martin, Tennessee, and one of the clips is him as a little kid in a Tennessee jersey, and it just traces him through, to the draft. So Ty Simpson's off the board. Levitt got to Knoxville this afternoon before we started recording. I saw that he'd arrived at like 4:00 our local time. And so I think what you're looking at is, one, he probably wouldn't have came in if Ty Simpson was realistic, and then 2, at this point, everybody that has been tabbed as of interest to Tennessee has signed with another team or announced that they're going to the NFL. So you're right now probably picking between Sam Levitt, throwing a bag at him. He's the last top-tier quarterback transfer.
He's the last big name, yeah.
Throwing a bag at him, hoping Joey wins his lawsuit and comes back, and maybe you get some improvement year 2. And then, that report came out that he had a tumor on his throwing arm. So maybe that was playing through pain right there, or it is the GMAC Faison show. I mean, that's where we're at right now. Are we all agreed that we prefer Levitt?
Over Joey, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, y'all know as far as the podcast goes, like I've been a little bit more neutral on Joey than some of you guys, but I do think that there's something about a returning QB in Heupel's system. I mean, I think that there's some like real tangible pros there that he might be able to legitimately beat out Sam Levitt, even though he's not as talented. Um, I don't know. Like it's kind of like you have to try and get Sam Levitt, obviously, and they are clearly. But um, if you knew for sure Joey was coming back, I would feel really good about a QB competition between him and Sam, and probably Sam's going to win it. But I don't know. I think it would be a good competition.
Well, apparently Levitt's other big suitor is LSU, and you remember uh, Kiffin was told that they had like 15 million above the NIL floor that they were going to spend. So this could be a situation where it's, depending on what you believe about the numbers, which if we can't get some kind of salary cap, we need to at least have signing deals reported so that players can't be telling their teammates they made XYZ when in reality they made, ABC and then causing internal conflict. But let's say at this stage of the
But
game,
enough
Levitt
about
is,
Boo Carter.
yeah, enough about Boo Carter. If let's say at this point that Levitt is worth 4 million and Joey is maybe 2 million, does that change your answer any?
It depends on how you spend the money.
Right. Right. I think this is kind of what Nick was saying before, kind of really like this is probably maybe our first segment podcast. Like, I think that scenario points to you stick with Joey, you save the 2 million, and you go and beef up your defensive line, you beef up your secondary, you kind of fill out the other positions and just roll with what you got. I mean, the reality is, guys, like I don't think any of us are picking Tennessee to, be true contenders in the SEC next year, regardless of who our quarterback is. So to me, I think I'd rather just have a better, solid team all around and play with what you got and see what we can do.
That's where I'm at, Mac.
Sure.
Well, to that point, maybe I'm doomer too much, but I actually at this point don't know that Josh Heupel can survive being worse this year than they were last year. I don't know that he can survive being the same. Like 8-5 may cost him his job next year. And he looks like he hired the defensive staff like he thought that might be the case, because every one of their hires has been not just a good hire, but well regarded, carried a pretty hefty price tag. And they brought in that co-defensive coordinator. So if I'm trying to like reverse read Josh Heupel, he thinks his coaching staff was the first priority, and he went and spent a bag on his coaching staff. He now is, again, if you think he's doing this strategically, he's filling out his secondary before he gets to the linebacker and defensive line. He is, I would also say, he's taking a multi-strategy approach to quarterback. So they also brought in, and one of y'all might could look this up if you'd be willing or you have free time to do that. They also brought in like a Division III quarterback over the weekend. They brought in like 6 or 7 prospects to scout. There was also a Division III quarterback there. And so what it looks like to me is he's taking a shot at landing a big name. He has Joey staying eligible in his back pocket. And worst case scenario, he signs his third quarterback and goes with GMAC and Faison. Now, whether or not you believe that he should feel comfortable enough to go with GMAC and Faison based on his quarterback evaluations thus far may or may not, you may think that's foolish. But again, if I'm trying to reverse read him, assuming everything's happening according to plan, that's what it looks like he's doing to me. And I think he thinks he's got to get this right for the sake of, he said the right stuff. Like, this is beneath Tennessee, what we did this year. But I think for his own job's sake, he's probably got to be doing everything he can to try to survive another year with a really tough schedule.
Can I ask another question while Please. We're on transfers and everything? Has anyone heard, it's often the case, Ricky Gibson flirted with this last year, that guys will enter the portal and still stay. Is there any chance that, Peyton Lewis already landed, Bennett Warren already landed. I don't think Lance Hurd's coming back. Is there any chance that Ricky or Jordan Ross end up staying, that they're just doing this to get more money?
Well, we got rid of Chop. So Chop's not on the team anymore, Coach Chop. So I'm assuming that like Ross went, I think, within a couple hours after Chop was announced. The Volquest guys said if Ricky Gibson won't take a call from the new DBs coach, that probably means he's gone. But everything I've read says he's going back to Auburn. And so
he's from Alabama, right?
Yeah, I think we flipped him from Auburn initially. And the reality is, maybe this is what they're doing and maybe it's not, but it's what I would do. I'm after Boo Carter, after Nico, a guy who, if there was any part of Ricky that was thinking to come back 2 years in a row saying you're going to the portal to get a bigger payment, that second year done, dude, the bridge is burnt. That's not how you negotiate. They announced that they got a new deal done for Deshaun Bishop. So there's a way to ask for more money, right?
Without giving a nuclear ultimatum. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and giving a nuclear ultimatum, sitting out the whole year, and maybe he had to, but sitting out the whole year, then going into the portal, I would have a very hard time letting that guy back in my locker room. And maybe I'm too proud. Maybe Heupel's pragmatic, but I do have like a 3% hope that Jordan Ross may be talked back. That would be.
I just saw a report that he's at LSU right now.
Cool.
Actually, cool. Since I asked the question,
downgrading my hope.
You know how this portal stuff goes. Yeah, 24 hours after entering the portal, Tennessee starter and former 5-star edge rusher Jordan Ross is on campus at LSU. Sources tell random Twitter person.
Heartbreak in real time, folks. You saw it here.
Cool. Well, I think we, did enough portal talk for now. Obviously, there's a lot of questions still out there, and we'll continue to kind of cover this and talk about it as things come up. Let's go ahead and jump into the Music City Bowl, guys. As much as we don't want to. So again, Tennessee takes the loss from Illinois. 30-28 was the final score there. We watched the game together. All of us were together. Everyone was pretty bummed with how we performed. let's go ahead and just ask the question. If you had to pin it down to a singular reason, why do you think Tennessee lost that game? Joe, let's start with you, bud. So motivation, ultimately. Okay, cool. Nick, what are you going with? Singular reason why we lost that game, you think?
Can't score points. Yeah, I was pretty shocked. I actually thought, the defense had times when they looked as bad as they've looked all year. First half, I thought they played really well, better than I expected, and we couldn't score. I believe if we could have, it just didn't go the way I thought. If you'd have told me that we held them to, did they have 7 or 10 in the first half, something like that?
Mm-hmm.
If you'd have told me that, I would have thought we would have won because I would have assumed that we scored a few times. We were probably up 21-7 or 21-10. And so the fact that we couldn't score, I feel like was the big reason. I felt the whole time like, I think in my prediction, I said that Illinois would score 27. And they scored 30. So it's about what I thought. I figured they would score about 4 times, and I just thought we would score 5 or 6 times. So just couldn't move the ball. It was the same tale of this Tennessee team all the year. When you got a decent, about as good as a defensive performance as you could get from this staff and this roster on the defensive side of the ball, you couldn't score. And there are games where you scored a lot and your defense couldn't, stop anybody. So just couldn't put a whole game together. And so, bottom line, couldn't score.
Yeah. Jeff, what about you, man?
Really similar to Joe. I think the core issue is that this team doesn't know how to motivate itself. But the problem presented most fully on the offensive side of the ball. And I don't know what you want to do with that. I actually think our defense got 3 stops in that game, if I'm remembering correctly, like 3 legitimate, played well enough to stop them and force the ball to be punted. That was more than we should have needed. So offense looked like they hadn't played together. I mean, this is just the perpetual dilemma of being a Vols fan. Maybe the digression we saw over the course of the year, particularly on the offense, was a product of that tumor on Joey getting worse and worse from a pain point over the course of the year. He had surgery really fast after the bowl game. But that's probably the worst game I've seen him play as a Volunteer. And I think he's a pretty high character kid. I don't think he's like going through the motions. So maybe there's something to Joey just physically at the end of the season wasn't able to do what he wanted to do. But end of the day, we were uninspired for the last 2 games of the season. And it was the offense that was letting the team down more than the defense.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, the surgery obviously changes how you view the back half of the season for sure. Like you said, was that injury getting worse? How much did it affect him on his throwing arm? I mean, those are just questions obviously you're never going to have answers to ultimately, which sucks. And then there's a part of you, at least a part of me, that's like, well, man, if it was that bad, like I would have just loved to have seen George McIntyre in that bowl game and just like see what we've got. Because if we're going to have to roll the dice next year on him or Faison anyways, like just let the kid play, man. Like let's see what he's got and let's see how we look with him. And if we lose, okay, like we played our backup quarterback and it is what it is. But at the same sense, obviously, like that could have been Joey's last game. And so I'm sure like you said, Jeff, high character kid, I'm sure he was begging to play. And maybe Heupel was like, hey, since you're hurt and you need surgery, like, why don't we throw GMAC out there and just see what he can do? And I'm sure Joey was absolutely not. I'm sure he was adamant about playing, which is obviously mad respect to him for that and for wanting to play. But at the end of the day, man, Heupel's put himself in a tough spot. And so to answer the question for me, why did we lose? Joe kind of mentioned it, but to me, it's always about coaching. I think we coached poorly. I think we got out coached by Brett Bielema, and I think it showed. Whether that's because Heupel didn't do enough to get us ready from a game plan perspective, whether it's he didn't do enough to get the locker room inspired to play from a motivation perspective. Regardless of what it is, to me, it's bad coaching. I mean, to show up and look that pitiful in a game like that. If Joey's hurt, okay, let's change the scheme. Like let's scheme around that. Let him play his last game, but let's do things that allow us to win the game with him being hurt. And if that's true, like we ran the ball pretty well against Illinois, and I think we didn't run the ball enough if Joey's hurt. Like there's so many things that I feel like with, hindsight, we could have done differently. If Joey's injury was that big of a deal, we could have done more to try and win that game. If Joey's injury is not a big deal, then what the heck is going on? I just think there's so many things that I left with more questions than answers, right? You left with, I have no idea what this team is about at all, because it's one thing to show up and just lose because, okay, maybe the Big Ten is better than the SEC now and Illinois is better than we gave them credit for, but you didn't even look like you wanted to be at the game. You didn't even look like you wanted to play. And that just reflects on bad coaching, in my opinion. Jeff, go ahead.
Well, I'll never watch that game again unless somebody like physically ties me down and holds my eyes open. But I remember real time, the first couple sacks that Joey took, it looked to me like he was holding onto the ball looking to hit a big hitter. And so it would be hard to persuade me that Heupel wasn't trying to get him over that 500-yard mark to get on the all-time passing list. And then what ends up happening is he breaks his 200-yard streak, right? Now, they did get Deshaun Bishop over 100, but I think he was only 16 yards away. I'm sure that was a goal. They got that one. But as I mentioned while we're watching the game, you could have went to win and get Joey, some flowers on the way out, or you could have played your developmental guys, and Tennessee managed to do neither one. And so I don't know how you don't come away and say that's a complete all systems failure at the coaching level.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just atrocious. I mean, the whole game was just awful. And like you said, it's a game that I never want to ever watch again or think about again if I don't have to. So listener, we're doing this for you. So just know that we love you and we're doing this because we care about your.
You need someone to go through it with you. So
exactly. Speaking of giving Joey his flowers, I would like to give flowers to our boomer doomer, as Nick's coined him. Jeff, thank you for being the only logical fan to pick Illinois to win the game. You did it. Congratulations. You win Sad Sack of the Year award. So congratulations. Tip of the cap to Jeff Wright on that one. Jeff, I know you don't feel good about your prediction, but you had Illinois scoring give me just a second. You had Illinois scoring 28. They scored 30. You had Tennessee scoring 17. We scored 28. So Tennessee did a little better. Illinois did a little better offensively than you expected. Guess the biggest thing I want to ask, Jeff, is just you clearly thought we were going to lose, and we actually won by a closer margin than you expected. Is there any positive that you take from that at all, or is, like you said, or is it just worse? Like, did you think it wasn't going to play out that bad, but the score would be bigger anyways? I'm interested to hear, because your score was an 11-point march and we only lost by 2. So talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I think our offense is worse than I even expected. But don't forget, we had that fumble into a touchdown on return. Mm-hmm. That was just whatever. I'm not a Darwinian, but that's random chance. And so you take those 7 points off the board, and that margin's a lot closer to what I initially
And that just to be clear, that was an offensive possession. Joey's the one that fumbled that ball. It wasn't on a kickoff return or a punt return.
I thought he filtered it, kind of dropped it, and then took off.
No,
am I remembering? Yeah.
We fumbled the ball, picked it up, and ran it 90 yards for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. At which point, my friend Max said, "Too much time," and he was right.
Thank you.
So that's what I thought in my head. I was describing that we had the Fumblerooski return. I don't know how I mixed it up.
Gotcha.
I think that was just pure accidental bonus.
You're just trying to suppress it from your memory already,
and
you should lean into that. Yeah. Yeah. Lean into that inclination. Your inclination to suppress your memories from that game, just lean all the way into it.
It's hard for a Calvinist to say this, but if anything in the cosmos is pure accidental chance, that kick return was. And so I just think I don't think I was even as off as
I am also a Calvinist, and I think that's the exact kind of thing that would happen if you're a Tennessee fan, because you go from jubilation to utter despair 4 minutes later.
Yeah.
Or instantaneously, because there was 4 minutes left in the game and we hadn't stopped Illinois consistently all night. But
that game, I mean, that game is such a Tennessee game because, like, when we went up early on, y'all were like, "Oh, Jeff, the prediction's looking rough," and I'm like, "Oh, I can't," I love the idea that I'm going to be wrong. And then we get this gift 7 points, 6 and whatever. And then, like you said, Max, like, too much time. And lo and behold, our coach can't manage the clock. It's perfect. It's exactly encapsulation of what we've been frustrated with at least the second half of the season.
Sorry, this just hit me like a ton of bricks, but we completely glossed over. It's my fault, 100%. Max Gilbert also entered the transfer portal, and looks like he's going to Arkansas. I don't know I don't know how official that is. I don't know if it's like officially official, but yeah,
it's official. He's gone. I also forgot about that, but I think that's another thing we're trying to suppress from our memory is just Max Gilbert. And I say that with all respect to Max. I'm sure he's a great kid, and I'm sure he gave his all for Tennessee. But see you, Burrow.
Well, Vol Twitter, and this is true, guys. You might as well go ahead and make, like, if you can find a prop bet for this, go ahead and put money on it. Vol Twitter immediately was like, he's going to hit a game-winning field goal when Arkansas plays.
He's going to go to Arkansas, and because he's gone to Arkansas. Yeah,
he's going to beat us with a game winner. And I'm
assuming he makes it to Arkansas and doesn't miss the turn off of 40 when he's on his way.
He went from like, "Hey, Max Gilbert's a good kid," to "I'll take the lowest possible shot at you." And you know what, Nick? I'm here for both. I think both.
I'm petty. I'm dying. This is a terminal illness, so.
Yeah. Well, that is a good point, Jeff. There were some freak TDs though in that game. Joey's fumble, the kick return, that obviously impacted the total points that were scored, because it would have been way less points had those two kind of freak plays not happened. But yeah, I think the game was obviously worse than Nick and Joe and I predicted, but not just because we lost. I think all of us would have felt good enough had we shown up, scored a lot of points, and lost because Illinois just outscored us. And it just was what, maybe, interim defensive coordinator for the game and defense looked bad. They've kind of looked bad all year. Okay, we just write that off as like, well, whatever. But just the fact that, like we've said, I don't want to belabor the point, that the offense didn't show up and did not look like they had anything to play for was pretty much the most frustrating outcome as a Tennessee fan, because we've been conditioned now to believe that our offense is good. Even if they're not good, they should score points because Josh Heupel is such an incredible play caller and good schemer and can get guys open. And none of that seemed to be true at all in the game. Joe, I'll let you go ahead and add your 2 cents. I'm going to transition us.
If I can throw more dirt on that, Bielema just coached like he's always coached. Like there's nothing new that he broke out in that game that people didn't know he was going to try to do. The book on him is complete and established, and yet somehow we ended up playing to just what he wants to do.
Yeah, I agree, Jeff. Sorry, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties here, listener. Jeff, can you hear me okay?
So just Joe and Nick and Mac have just completely dropped off the podcast all of a sudden.
Okay. All I can see is you, Jeff. I can see you and me. Yeah, that's it.
It's just you and me right now, bud.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and this is a perfect, just example of our podcast is now functioning as Tennessee's offense does, which is inept and not even there. So I'm going to go ahead and anyway, so I'll go ahead and transition us to, it's unfortunate they're not here for this, but the transition was to my best bet, which was the first quarter cover. I had Tennessee against the spread first quarter.
Time to pay the popper, baby.
It is time to pay, and I'm willing to do whatever the podcast sees fit to pay my reparations. But yeah, it was terrible. I mean, like you said, you kind of touched on it. Tennessee came out and scored first, not on their first drive, but they did score first. And so I felt confident, when we go up 7-0, I felt confident. Yeah, we're going to cover. I knew the defense, obviously might give up some points, but Illinois just drained the whole first quarter and scored with little to no time left, and that was it. So, listener, if you lost some money on that bet, that's 100% my bad. I had belief in the offense, and clearly they showed I should not have. So, go ahead and give me your worst, gentlemen. I'm here for
it. Nick, welcome back.
Yeah, I mean that's just par for the course being a Tennessee fan.
So. Mac, here's the thing. I said it when we first talked about this, you having to do some kind of penance for this, that I don't like beating up on my friends or making them, whatever. So here's what I actually prefer. I think all of me and Joe and Nick should chip some money in, and you have to eat the hottest hot wings that we can find for one of our episodes. And the reason I picked that, buddy, is because I know you like hot wings, and I feel like it feels like the mildest, potentially funniest punishment that wouldn't actually be that awful for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll do it. Seriously, I'll do it. I was 100% expecting to have to get like a butt tattoo of Champions of Life or 5-star hearts or something. So eating hot wings.
Wait, I want to reconsider.
What, those are options?
Hey, if y'all cover the cost, I'll do whatever you say. I'm going to own my bad take here. Yeah, I mean, it's on me. I mean, first, well, I think actually my play was a good play. It's just that the players and the coaches let me down. So that's where I'm going to stand. I think the responsibility really falls on Josh Heupel. So, Josh, when you listen to this episode, if you want to join me in eating the hot wings, you'd be more than welcome.
I'm sure Josh Heupel would join you in eating hot wings.
Yeah, here again, a perfect encapsulation of being a Tennessee fan. You showed up, they didn't. I mean, that's what it is, man.
Yeah, right.
I would love to punish Josh Heupel. I'd be far less charitable to Josh Heupel because he makes like $9 million.
I'm now thinking, though, the tattoo thing's interesting. I'm now thinking maybe something on your chest with the uprights and Max Gilbert going wide left against Georgia.
Oh, that's brutal, man.
Just the uprights and the ball just going right over your shoulder.
A chess piece? Like, golly. Might as well put it on my face or something, Like,
let's go across the bridge of the nose. Let's go across the bridge of the nose.
Oh, jeez. Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, I'll do it. Just
right here.
I guess the hot wings will suffice this time.
We have plenty of time to make this happen, so I'll seriously do whatever you guys come up with, and I'll do it with a happy heart.
That's my nomination. I want you to eat hot wings.
Cool. Well, anything else on the Music City Bowl, guys, or are you all good with wrapping up on that?
It's just terrible that Joe was going into an epic rant, and apparently he's lost all access to the internet.
He's in the netherworld now. I don't know where
Rest
he
in
is.
Peace, Joe.
We love you, buddy.
Yeah.
Pour one out for the Tennessee Vols and also Joe.
Well, let's move on to something not quite as black-pilling, but also maybe just as much, which is Tennessee basketball. So since we last recorded, Tennessee has played 2 SEC games. Arkansas last Saturday. Tennessee lost that game 75-86. And then we beat Texas on Tuesday night, 85-71. Let's start with Arkansas. I know some of us weren't able to catch that game in its entirety. But the biggest takeaway, I'll just go ahead and start because this is so obvious. The biggest takeaway was, Jeff, you asked the question like on our first episode, or I think, or our second episode about like, are free throws a problem? And Nick and I both kind of felt like definitely we haven't shot free throws as good as we should have, but there's evidence that this team is an okay free throw shooting team. And man, it just reared its ugly head against Arkansas. The free throws were atrocious. I can't say like with absolute certainty that we win that game if we hit our free throws. But definitely the game is much closer, and you put yourself in a position to win the game if you hit your free throws. And
you were not like 6 on his own, right?
Yes, he was 5 for 11 from the free throw line, dude. A 5-star did not shoot 50% from the free throw line. Like I don't even know.
You got to be Shaq. You got to be Shaq to be that bad.
I don't know that Shaq would have been that bad, to be honest with you. I mean, it was terrible. I mean, it was absolutely horrible. And honestly, like I don't want to jump ahead too soon, but in the Texas game a few nights later, Jimmy Dykes was on the call again, and Nate Ament goes to the free throw line early in the first half, and he hits his first free throw, and the crowd went absolutely wild when Nate Ament hit his first free throw. And I thought, how sad do you have to, like, if I was him at the line and I just had, and the crowd's going wild because I had a free throw, that would be so embarrassing. And Jimmy Dykes even made a comment about, it was good to see him, making a free throw or whatever he said. It's like, dude, that is like the lowest of lows. Like how the fact that like you're getting cheered on for making a free throw that doesn't even, I mean, it's the first half. It's not like it was a, late game leverage situation, need to hit the free throw and you got it. It's like, it didn't even matter if he made it or not, to be honest, at that point in the game. And people are losing their minds because he was so bad. I mean, he was so bad against Arkansas. It was horrible.
It's humiliating. Nick, you weren't on the pregame with me and Mac, but the parallels between Nico and Ament as high-dollar young superstars who got a big bag from Tennessee are starting to feel really, really similar to me.
That's a black pill right there, boys. Rick Barnes says he's going to improve. I saw that. He said he's going to improve a lot.
Well, Rick Barnes went out and hit up individual donors for the money to bring in Nate Ament. So Rick Barnes has a lot riding on Nate Ament getting better. I hope he's right.
Can I ask a question about free throws from, both of you guys know more about basketball than me. I played, but Mac's coach. Jeff's been really involved with basketball all his life. Fair to say your favorite sport growing up?
Yep.
Jeff? Yeah. So I'm just going to read a Barnes quote from the post game that I thought was interesting and get your assessment of it. He said, "I don't think we have a guy on the team that doesn't think he can make them being free throws, but they're going to have to make it when the lights are on. But that just puts so much more pressure on everything that you do. Puts pressure on your defense. You want to run some things, but then you start thinking, well, if they get fouled, are they going to make the free throws? Guys that you want to be aggressive, they go pick up fouls and don't make free throws. It really just continues to put pressure on every other part of the game." Do you feel that is true when you're that bad at free throws? Does it really press the other aspects of your game in that way?
Yeah, it got to be such a problem in the NBA that they would foul bad free throw shooters, that the NBA was looking at changing its rules. So if you fouled a guy at a certain late game stage, you could inbound the ball rather than have him shoot free throws. It is, Hack-a-Shaq was a strategy built around his inability to hit free throws. And to just make it worse, so this is my old head take again, but Mac, I think I said it when I first raised the issue. Teams that don't hit free throws don't deserve to win. It is the easiest shot in basketball And I got that from Michael Jordan. He said it's basically like free points. And
that's why they call it the charity stripe.
Right. All it takes is repetitions. You go get in a gym anywhere, your backyard, wherever you can practice free throws. If you're hurt and it's not an upper body injury, you can practice free throws. It's just about discipline, physical discipline in terms of muscle memory, and mental discipline in terms of just doing what you've practiced countless times. And so, again, as an old head, it always aggravates me. What it is to me is a tale that the player doesn't care about being the best he can possibly be. He's got some other priority. So it infuriates me when players can't hit free throws. Shaq may have had a physical disadvantage with the size of his hands. Maybe. That's possible. But Rick Barry shot underhanded. That's the softest free throw you can shoot. I would rather be humiliated shooting a granny shot than I would be humiliated by the crowd cheering when I made one.
Yeah, it was awful. It was so bad. On Sunday night, my family wanted to get out of the house for a little bit, so we went to a local park down the street, and they have the old, double iron rims, and I was like, well, I haven't shot a basketball in probably about 2 years, so I'm just going to shoot 10 free throws, see how many I make, just because we were so bad last night. I want to see what I can do. 2 years cold, 30 years old, overweight, out of shape, see how many I can make. I went 7 for 10. 7 for 10 from the free throw line. And that's pure just muscle memory of doing it for years in school. Obviously, no pressure, no nothing. But I'm just like, these guys are getting paid a ton of money to do this, and you can't do this. How is I don't like. I don't understand.
To do the easiest thing the game requires.
Yeah, it's really just not that hard. It really just isn't that hard. And you have to, at some point, especially if you have any aspirations to compete in the SEC, to make a run in the tournament, you have to make free throws. You just have to do it. It won't necessarily always win you games, but it will always cost you games every time.
Well said.
And it's horrible. I mean, it is absolutely horrible. And like you said, Jeff, like Tennessee did not deserve to win. Tennessee did not deserve to win. I mean, I tend to be harder on coaches always than players because at the end of the day, paid or not paid, talented or not talented, they're still 20-year-old kids. They're going to go through stuff that you might not even know about, might not see, and they're going to have off nights. Like, it's going to happen. Like, I get that. But at the end of the day, like, Rick Barnes has got to do what it takes to make this team be able to function when we go to the free throw line and we need points. Like, we have to fix it. And if it's repetition, okay, then we need to have practices dedicated to shooting free throws. If that's really what it is. Because, I mean, all things considered, there were some moments where the defense looked good. The offense looked okay in that game. Like, it wasn't all terrible the entire time, but the free throw line really stood out as just a place that we are not up to snuff at all when it comes to competing at the highest level.
It's also a symptom of the perpetual problem with Rick Barnes teams, which we've talked about. I don't know how long the streak ended up being, but at one point in that game, we went 3 in-game minutes without scoring a bucket. So the drought came, right? The easiest way to break that drought, this is what I tell my son when he's playing in City League ball. Your shot's not dropping, go to the rim, initiate contact, and get a few buckets at the free throw line. Make the ref call something, go watch the ball go through the rim a couple times from the free throw line and kind of get your groove back. And here again, not to harp on it, but you can count on, if there were a prop bet for this, it would be free money. Tennessee is going to go 90 seconds plus without a basket at some stretch in a ball game. And it could be, I don't know what the over-under is. It could be 120 seconds. It could be, 160 seconds. They're going to go through some kind of massive drought. And that they can't even come back and chip away at the drought by knocking down free throws. It's a grammar level failure. It's basketball 101. Make your free throws, and that helps you when you're in a shooting slump. And they can't do it. They just can't do it.
Well, to put a fine point on the free throw conversation, Tennessee as a team is 238th nationally, sitting at 69.9% as a team. So Mac is better by himself.
Rick Barnes teams are never going to be so offensively effective that they can survive that. There's never a version of a Rick Barnes team outside of the 1 year he has Kevin Durant that can survive that kind of flippancy. If you've got Steph Curry at Davidson, you might be able to have everybody else on the team not be able to shoot a free throw because he's just going to go get you buckets, or he's going to draw so much defensive attention that you're going to get layups and dunks in the paint for easy buckets. That'll never be true for Rick Barnes.
Yeah, it's like Max said. I mean, you're just describing. You are incarnating Mac's principle, which is that not hitting free throws will lose you ball games, and that's especially true for Rick Barnes teams, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I really don't think you deserve to win a game where you can't make your free throws.
Yeah, and Jeff, you mentioned it on the last podcast. Calipari, I mean, he coached a good game. I thought they kind of enforced their will upon Tennessee and just made us play to their tempo. And I thought that was the best Calipari performance, all things considered, like with the talent, with the situation, whatever. I thought that was his best performance against Rick Barnes that I've ever watched. I thought he coached a really good game. I thought they played to their strengths well. I mean, Darius Acuff Jr. just absolutely went off. He just destroyed us in that game. And yeah, I mean, for as good as Bishop Boswell is defensively, that's another thing I wanted to touch on. I thought he played a pretty bad game defending the perimeter. And I did not like much of what I saw in that game at all. It didn't seem like we had any tenacity. Didn't seem like Jalen Carey didn't play well. He didn't bang around down low and didn't seem to play his game at all. And again, credit to Arkansas. That probably is a lot of how they coached and prepared for the game and knew what Rick Barnes wanted to do and took that away. But also at a certain point, like, you'd like to just think that our players are good enough to assert their will and get some of their buckets to keep it close and dictate terms to Arkansas at least a little bit. And we did not seem to do that at all.
Well, and Estrella too. Estrella looked particularly soft as a spaghetti noodle to me in that game. I don't know.
Phillips,
maybe
boys. Missing Cade Phillips.
Yeah, I agree. I do think Cade brings a certain energy to the team that they are missing. I don't know that it'll be catastrophic, but I do think they're missing him. I'd rather have Estrella's minutes going to Cade Phillips. I know that's way out there, but Estrella takes stuff off the board when he gets boxed out, when he makes stupid decisions with his fouls. Cade Phillips doesn't usually take a lot off. He may not contribute a ton, but you're never like, oh, you really cost us right there. I mean, I don't know. It may be a symptom of like kind of the same thing as the Music City Bowl, that they know Barnes is effective against Arkansas, that they have more talent on their team than Arkansas, and Arkansas came out and said, well, actually, we want it more, and imposed their will on us. Whatever it is, it's unacceptable based on what Rick Barnes is supposed to be bringing to the table.
Yep. Well, Joe asked, last thing here on Arkansas game, Joe asked, how we would feel if the game was close and Tennessee found a way to win, like we would be down about that. And, obviously Nick said, but we all kind of agreed, like, you just got to find a way to win. And obviously Tennessee did not do that. And so I do think that after watching that game, I left feeling like this is not a team that can make the Elite Eight for sure, and maybe not a Sweet 16. This feels like a first weekend exit team for Rick Barnes. And we'll go ahead and transition to the Texas game. I'll let y'all kind of say something about that. But the Texas game, even though we won that game and won it in convincing fashion, obviously that was kind of expected. But that didn't change how I feel. I do feel like this team is a first round exit, or a first weekend exit kind of team. They'll win their first game and lose in the round of 32 to somebody they shouldn't lose to. Yeah, I mean, I think this team does not have what they need to make an actual run that we wanted them to make.
The Texas game was basically the Gillespie show.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't bode well for us in a couple different ways. He is supposed to be the kind of go get a bucket until Nate Ament matures option. So like he's a guy that you could count on to say we need a couple points here, right? But if Gillespie, I don't think Texas is very good. That's what it really comes down to. I just don't think Texas is a particularly good basketball team. But even if you were trying to find some positive for the future out of this, if Gillespie is going to have to score not 30 points a game, but let's say he's got to be mid-20s every game for this team to win, you've got to completely reconstruct what the team wants to do. Barnes wanted to do kind of a big man oriented version of the team this year, famously thinking he wants to pattern off Florida from last year. This is not how that team wants to win basketball games. And that's going to be a really hard strategy flip if you were even going to try it. I just think it was an anomaly and against a bad team. So there's nothing I would take from that other than Gillespie. He'll have a better highlight package on senior night is basically all you can take away from that game.
Well, and can you count on Jacoby? Just like, I know he scored 34, but I mean, box score says he was 12 of 18. I mean, he's just not going to do that, obviously, every night. And is he even going to average in the mid 20s? Like, is he getting it? He's not Dalton Connect. He's not Chaz Lanier. I mean, I like Jacoby Gillespie, but like, it's just not that kind of team, right? Like, we don't have a backcourt guy that can just take over a game every night and win you the ball game.
DK is not walking through that door. Jacoby Gillespie's not him. And if you need him, like Jeff said, if you need him to score that much, this team's not going to win.
It goes back to something I said about Jalen Carey on an earlier episode. If Jalen Carey is your biggest producer in counting stats, I worry about that being the best guy on a bad team scenario. So, like, you could do the Deion Sanders thing with Shedeur and build everything around Jacoby getting buckets. And I think he probably could average mid-20s, but that team would have a hard time being above 500.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just to what we talked about kind of all year. This is not supposed to be this way. Jacoby Gillespie was supposed to be a guy who can get you points when you need them, but you never at any point, none of us were hoping that he was going to be the leading scorer. None of us were ever hoping that he was going to be a 25-point a game, kid. Like, no one wanted that, expected that, and it was fun. I mean, it was fun to watch him go off. It was fun to watch him shoot the ball well. Like, I'm not trying to dog on him. Obviously, he played a great game, and yeah, it was great that you flexed on Texas because you should have done that. But just coming off the heels of watching how poorly we played, just like Jeff said, it just felt like we were beating up on a bad team, which of course is good compared to the alternative. But I don't think it bodes well for what we have coming down the pipe.
I expect Florida, if they're not in one of their maybe this is too quick a transition, Mac. You're steering the ship.
No, go ahead.
Here.
No, please go ahead.
Unless Florida is having one of the things that they do, which is they can go ice cold and it can be really ugly on their end shooting the ball. But unless they do that, I expect Florida to be kind of ugly too.
100%. One of the things I was going to, we'll go ahead and transition to that game, and then I'll go ahead and respond to that. So the next matchup coming up, listener, is Tennessee at Florida. So down in Gainesville, that's this Saturday at 11 a.m. on ESPN. Florida sitting at 10-5 on the year, 1-1 in the SEC. According to ESPN, Florida has a 65% chance to win that game. And exactly what you're saying, Jeff. I mean, they have the exact opposite kind of blueprint play style as us. So they are absolutely a matchup nightmare for Tennessee if they're on. We will not win that game if they're on. It's not even a question. I absolutely think we're going to lose. Just because I'm assuming Florida's going to be on at home with Tennessee coming into town, I assume that's going to be what happens.
They don't even have to be super on, right? They can just not be abnormally
just don't have a
cold.
Bad night. Just don't have a bad night.
Right. I don't see us winning that game. I would be absolutely shocked if we leave Gainesville with a win, especially, of course, when you factor in the free throw woes. So if you're not hitting your free throws in that game, you're definitely not going to win. And so, yeah, I mean, I do not have a very optimistic outlook when it comes to our trip to Florida on Saturday. And I fully anticipate Florida getting the best of us and us being even more frustrated with the basketball team on Saturday evening after that game.
Yeah, Danny White's everything school is quickly becoming everything except the sports that matter school.
Hey, you watch it now.
Nailed it.
Baseball matters.
Well, yes. But, dude, at this point, it's
but he
pure
lost Tony.
hopium.
Yeah.
We don't even have Tony Vitello. It's just pure hopium. And look, I'm not rooting against the baseball team at all. But based on the way this year's going, how can you assume it's not going to be another, finally we got the baseball season. turns out we're worse than we thought. Like everything Danny touches turns to dead leaves. And I'm rooting for Elander. I want Elander to pick up where Tony left off. I want everything good for them. But when Danny makes, the Lady Vols are not very good this year, and they were apparently more important than keeping Tony V. Everything he's touched has turned to dead leaves. Fans hate him. The Neyland experience is worse off for his influence. Football's not living up to expectations. Basketball's not living up to expectations. I just, as a pattern recognizer, I'm really in the dumps about the one sport that I once upon a time felt like it's going to be fine. That maybe it's not a natty. They're probably going to get to Omaha, and if they don't get to Omaha, they're going to be on the cusp of getting to Omaha. That's all up in the air now.
No, definitely. And we don't need to spend time on baseball, but I am optimistic about Elander. But yeah, you're right. It's pure just hoping that he continues what Tony's built there. But
37 days though, dude. I'm counting down with you. I want it. I just feel like we're in a kind of a bad rhythm.
Yep. Next thing here, kind of the last thing, is Tennessee. Also, they'll play 2 games between the next time we record. The second game is next Tuesday against Texas A&M. This is at home. Texas A&M will be coming in. They're 12-3 now. They'll play another game Saturday, but they're 2-0 in the SEC, technically atop the SEC standings. That game is at 6 p.m. on SEC Network next Tuesday night. Tennessee is going to be probably a pretty heavy favorite in that one, being it's a home game. I think I am more optimistic about this game simply because Texas A&M is like play style wise in terms of what they want to do, what they're going to try to do is just a weaker version of us. And so I do think that Rick Barnes is going to be able to play the game that he wants to play, and not going to get a ton of pushback on game flow and things like that from Texas A&M, because they're going to also want to do those things. But I just assume and believe that Tennessee's going to do them better. So I think next time we record, when we jump on here, if Tennessee beat Florida and lost to A&M, I would have a lot of question marks about how we managed to do that. But I would be glad that we beat Florida, obviously. But I think as it stands right now, I'm pretty confident about the A&M game next week. Does anybody have anything to add about that game?
No, I'll defer to you on that. And I will say young teams are volatile, so we could be back on here being like, holy cow, we didn't see that coming, because young teams ebb and flow a lot more than veteran teams. I just don't have a lot of hope for it. I figure we'll beat the teams we should beat and lose to the teams that should beat us. And it looks like there's more teams that should beat us than I expected.
And now that you have a greater body of work, I mean, I know Mac and I were the ones saying, I'm not worried about the free throws, but at some point, your percentage is just not going to get a lot better, assuming that you're in the midst of the season and everybody's not living in the gym shooting free throws. That should have been done in June, July, August. So.
Yeah, and should have done over the course of your career up to this point. Like, you should have thousands upon thousands of reps. If you're talented enough to play major D1 basketball, you should have thousands of reps knocking free throws down.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing's crazy about the free throws too. Nick, you mentioned the percentage, 69 whatever percent now. In the month of November, we were like shooting, I think it was like 77% as a team. And so the months of December and January just absolutely wrecked that percent. I mean, dropped to 8 points, in the month and a half that we've gone through, December and January. So it's just, I mean, it seems like it's literally getting worse, which is incredibly frustrating. And that's the thing, like, obviously I get the games now are more important, so maybe there's more pressure on the free throws individually, but like, you can't tell me that the free throws that Jacoby hit down the stretch against Houston were any less pressure or important than the free throws we hit against, or didn't hit against Arkansas. Like, I get that that's an SEC game, but like, you're probably equally up for both of those games. And I don't understand why you can hit them in one and then turn around a month later and just absolutely completely clueless as a team, as a whole, the next month. It's crazy.
Hey, do we know if Nate Ament was ever a volleyball player in high school?
I almost asked that earlier, but I couldn't stomach hearing it coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
JP Estrella played some volleyball, same volleyball, I think, up there in Maine.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You know who didn't play volleyball? Cade Phillips.
Don't shoot a lot of free throws in volleyball. Don't shoot a lot of free throws.
On that note, Nick, why don't you go ahead and plug our social media?
Yeah, you can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on X and on our YouTube channel. And wherever you find us, please like, subscribe, give us reviews, because that helps our viewership grow. You guys know the drill. If you partake of any other podcasts and YouTube channels, you know that that's true. So we'd love for you to help us out. And if you have any free throw shooting tips to give Rick Barnes, please hit him up as well.
We have a loyal base of YouTube users, many of them related directly to Mac Williams, but they are active in comments, very kind comments, and I just want to shout them out. I appreciate y'all. You're our YouTube base, and
that's who we do it for. That's who we do it for.
Yeah,
we're out here grinding for Mac's family.
By the common fan, for the common fan, especially if your last name is Williams. Anyways, all right, listener, thank you. We will see you again next week, and remember, it's terminal.